You know, this is one of the best-selling books ever written, translated into hundreds and hundreds of languages. But what is it about this simple story, a pilot and a little boy from another planet, that makes it so timeless? Okay, let's dive into this and really unpack the incredible wisdom hidden inside Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's masterpiece, The Little Prince.
So the story kicks off not with a prince, but with a puzzle. The narrator, when he was just a kid, shows his very first drawing to a bunch of adults and asks them, "Does this scare you?" And they're just confused. See, they see one thing, but the child sees something totally different. And right there, that simple question, it sets up the entire theme of the book, this huge gap between what grown-ups see and what's actually there.
And this, right here, just shows you that gap perfectly. The grown-ups, they're so focused on what they call matters of consequence, so all they see is a hat. They literally can't imagine anything else. But the child, our narrator, he sees the reality just beneath the surface, a boa constrictor that has swallowed an elephant whole. And that failure of imagination, it's so crushing that he gives up his dream of ever being an artist.
So our narrator, he grows up to become a pilot. And it's here, after crash landing in the massive, isolating emptiness of the desert, that a fateful encounter is about to change his entire life. And you have to understand, this deep connection between the story and the guy who wrote it is absolutely not an accident. Saint-Exupéry wasn't just some writer. He was a pioneering aviator, a French aristocrat flying these super dangerous mail routes right across the Sahara. So is it any surprise that his narrator is a pilot who finds himself stranded in that exact same desert facing life-or-death repairs? And it's right here, in this moment of total crisis, that this extraordinary small person just shows up and asks him to draw a sheep. Well, the pilot, kind of out of habit, shows him his old drawing number 1. And the little prince, he doesn't see a hat. He immediately sees the elephant inside the boa. Can you imagine? For the first time in his life, the narrator has met someone who gets it. Their bond is forged, right then and there.
But where in the world did this little prince even come from? Well, to understand him, we've got to understand the tiny world he left behind, an asteroid known only as B612. You see, life on his tiny planet is all about discipline. Every single morning, he has to tend to it. And his most important job? Pulling up the baobab shoots. Now, these aren't just weeds, you guys. They're this powerful metaphor for all the small bad habits or negative thoughts that, if you just let them go, can grow big enough to destroy everything.
But his life isn't all chores and baobabs. No, his entire world gets turned upside down by the arrival of a single, unique flower. She is so beautiful, but she's also vain, really demanding, and just full of contradictions. She'll talk about her thorns protecting her from tigers, but then she's terrified of a little draft of air. She's basically the complicated, often confusing nature of love.
And here's the thing, the prince, he just doesn't understand her. He takes all her poor little stratagems and her boastful words so seriously that he completely misses the deep affection hidden underneath. And he admits it later, right? He says he was just too young to see past all that vanity to the love she was really offering. Confused and unhappy, he makes a choice. He runs away from his planet.
So he leaves, and his journey takes him to 6 nearby asteroids, and each one is inhabited by a single, solitary adult. This whole tour becomes this sharp, really funny critique of how absurd the grown-up world can be.
And every single person he meets is just stuck. They're trapped in these totally meaningless loops. You've got the king who rules a kingdom with no subjects, the businessman who just obsessively counts stars he can't do anything with, the lamplighter whose orders make 0 sense on his fast-spinning planet. All of them are so focused on their matters of consequence, but their lives are completely empty and isolated. It's a timeless warning against chasing empty metrics, whether it's owning stars or, counting followers online. So you can imagine he's pretty discouraged by all of this when he finally lands on Earth. And it is here, in a world that's just teeming with life, that he's going to learn the most important lesson of his entire journey. His first big discovery on Earth? Oh, it's absolutely heartbreaking. He stumbles into a garden that has 5,000 roses in it. Now remember, his own special flower had told him she was the only one of her kind in the whole universe. And now he thinks she was just a common rose, just one of thousands. The thought just crushes him, and he lies down in the grass and cries.
And right then, when he's at his lowest, he meets a fox. The fox tells the prince he can't play with him because he's not tamed. The prince has never even heard this word before. And that one question, what does that mean, tamed? That's the key. It unlocks everything. And the fox's answer is so simple, but it's profound. To tame something isn't to control it. It just means to establish ties. It's that slow process of building a one-of-a-kind relationship, of turning someone from just one out of 100,000 others into the one person who is unique in all the world, to you.
So how do you do it? How do you build those ties? Well, the fox lays out what he calls the proper rites. And the whole process takes patience and silence and ritual. Coming back at the same time every day is a big deal because it gives the heart time to get ready. It's all about earning trust and creating a shared meaning, one day at a time. So after the prince tames him, the fox finally shares his secret. And this first part, it's the answer to that puzzle from the very beginning of the book. Remember the grown-ups who couldn't see the elephant? They only looked with their eyes. The prince now gets it. His rose is unique, not because there aren't others like her, but because of the time he spent with her, the relationship they built. What's essential is that invisible bond.
But that's not all. Here's the second part, and it's just as important. Taming isn't a one-and-done thing. It actually creates a lasting obligation. Love isn't just about what you get. It's about the responsibility you take on for the one you have tamed. The prince realizes now he has to go back because he is responsible for his rose.
So, now he gets it, he has this brand new understanding, and the little prince makes his decision. But his journey home is a bittersweet one, and weirdly, it kind of echoes the fate of his own creator.
See, the problem is, his body is just too heavy to make the trip back to his asteroid. So he makes a deal with a poisonous snake. He explains to the terrified narrator that his physical death isn't really an ending. His body, he says, is just an old shell, and leaving it behind is the only way for his essential self to finally get home.
And when you look at the timeline, I mean, it is absolutely haunting. The book comes out in 1943. Just 1 year later, Saint-Exupéry, flying a reconnaissance mission, vanishes without a trace. His body was never found. Just like his creation, he left his shell behind and returned to the stars, leaving all of us to wonder what really happened.
The narrator describes the prince's departure like this. He fell as gently as a tree falls. He just falls, silently, without making a sound in the sand. And that imagery, it's almost the exact same way Saint-Exupéry had described the death of his own younger brother years before, a loss that had a huge impact on him. It's his quiet, gentle return to the universe.
And so we end where the book ends, with a question that just hangs there in the air. The narrator drew a sheep for the prince, right? But he forgot to draw a strap for the muzzle, so is the flower safe? Or did the sheep, this symbol of unthinking innocence, accidentally destroy the one thing the prince loves most? The narrator tells us that for people who understand, the answer to that question changes everything. It's asking us to decide, do we live in a world where things matter, a world of care and consequence? Or is it all just random accident? The book never gives us the answer. It leaves that, the most important question of all, up to us.